Could asking a neighbor to move their car really bring disaster? This woman was about to face such a problem. Her parking space was blocked by a careless neighbor, leaving her car unable to enter or leave. And this wasn't the first time she had run into the same trouble. So, in anger, she went to confront the neighbor.
제가 제 주차장 놔두고 왜 다른 데를 주차해요? 에? 애초에 저 차를 제대로 주차해놨으면 제가 밤늦게 전화할 일이 없잖아요. 나한테 왜 이래 다들 오늘. 씨발 진짜 열받아 죽겠네 진짜.
뭐라고?
그냥 빨리 빼주세요. 에?
But she had no idea that just a few complaints would make the man set his sights on her. This is the 2025 Korean thriller, No Parking. The woman's space was constantly being blocked, not knowing that it was all a trap set by her neighbor. Yeon-hee was a top student at Seoul University of Architecture, living a happy life with her successful husband. But at the age of 30, her husband had an affair with a younger and more attractive secretary. Strong-willed Yeon-hee could not accept such betrayal, so she immediately asked for a divorce. She thought her design talent would allow her to live independently without any problem. Yet when she joined a new company, she realized her design approach was outdated. And after 2.5 months of internship, she still failed to be hired full-time. This setback left her deeply frustrated. In order to gain recognition from the company, she often worked late into the night. One evening, after another exhausting day, Yeon-hee returned home, only to find a black car blocking her space. The position of the car was strange. There was still space ahead, but the driver stopped short, leaving the rear directly blocking her spot. Thinking it was simply poor driving skills, Yeon-hee didn't take it seriously. She tried squeezing through, and though the gap was narrow, her years of driving experience allowed her to park successfully. The next morning, Yeon-hee rushed to the office as usual, but as soon as she arrived, her boss Haechul told her that the proposal she had stayed up late revising was rejected again by the client. Under her colleagues' judging eyes, Yeon-hee felt awkward but took full responsibility, promising a new proposal by the afternoon.
죄송합니다. 저 때문에.
애초에 준비할 시간도 부족한데 내가 그냥 무리하게 맡겼잖아. 아니 왜 오 과장이 죄송해? 뭐 어쨌든 오 과장이 우리 팀에 합류를 해줘서 너무 고맙고 이번 PT 준비하느라 고생 많았어요.
Her attitude pleased Haechul, who told the team to learn from her. Yet his praise didn't make her happy at all. Instead, it made her feel even more uncomfortable. Because while Haechul looked upright on the surface, in reality he was a hypocrite. He was married, yet frequently harassed female colleagues, especially the newly hired Yeon-hee. He often found excuses to get close to her, and the reason she hadn't been hired full-time was precisely because he was blocking her behind the scenes. Although she knew his intentions were bad, to keep her job she could only force a smile. After a day of hard work, Yeon-hee's revised plan finally passed. To celebrate, Haechul suggested a dinner gathering that evening. Yeon-hee wanted to refuse, but afraid of upsetting her colleagues, she reluctantly agreed. After the dinner, Haechul tried to use the excuse of drinking to drive Yeon-hee home. Fortunately, Yeon-hee was prepared, saying she had already arranged a driver, and before he could say more, she left the restaurant. But when she arrived at her apartment complex, she found that same black car blocking the road again. This time it was parked in such a way that half the lane was blocked, leaving no room for her car. Since the driver had other work to do, he quickly left. Frustrated, Yeon-hee walked up to the car and saw a phone number left by the driver. She called the number and soon a curly-haired woman came downstairs.
딴 데 자리 없어요? 시간이 몇 시인데?
아니 제 주차장 놔두고 왜 다른 데를 찾아요 제가.
뭐야? 살살 들어가면 주차하겠구만. 초보예요?
This was Mal-suk, a new resident on the 5th floor, who complained about being disturbed. Seeing Yeon-hee's firm attitude, Mal-suk reluctantly moved the car. But while doing so, she noticed the smell of alcohol on Yeon-hee. Yeon-hee thought she might take advantage of that, yet Mal-suk's tone was oddly sarcastic.
술 마신 거 아니에요? 그럼 이거 음주운전 아닌가? 저 여기는 신고 안 할 테니까 이웃끼리 양보도 좀 하면서 그렇게 좀 삽시다. 에?
Hearing her strange comments, Yeon-hee felt embarrassed, thinking perhaps she herself had spoken impolitely after drinking. The next morning, Yeon-hee told her friend Soo-kyung about the encounter, but Soo-kyung warned her to be careful, reminding her not to provoke such people. Not long ago, Seoul had seen a murder caused by parking disputes. A man deliberately blocked another's parking spot to create conflict. After repeated failed arguments, the vehicle owner finally snapped and stabbed the troublemaker to death. Hearing this, Yeon-hee found it hard to believe. Although Mal-suk's attitude was a bit impolite, it shouldn't have led to something like this. What she didn't know was that Mal-suk was doing it deliberately. That night, after another late shift, Yeon-hee returned home. This time, Malsuk's car was parked perfectly within the lines, not blocking the exit. Yeon-hee thought the warning had worked, locked her car and headed home. But as she turned the corner, she faintly heard Malsuk's voice.
스토킹 아니에요? 꺼지라고.
Even from a distance, she sensed Malsuk seemed to be avoiding someone. Back home, exhausted, Yeon-hee lay down to rest. Just then, she received a message from Hae-chul. He asked her to go to a bar, but she pretended not to see it and turned off her phone. Moments after she switched off the light, a man appeared downstairs, looking up at her window with a strange expression. The next morning, Yeon-hee arrived at work as usual and ran into Hae-chul at the entrance. He claimed he had been drunk, and the message was meant for someone else. Yeon-hee replied that she was already asleep, so she hadn't noticed. Though he knew she was lying, he didn't press the matter. Still unwilling to give up, he said his car was being repaired, and since they lived in the same area, he wanted her to give him a ride home. Yeon-hee wanted to refuse, but when he mentioned her full-time position, she had no choice but to agree. After work, instead of letting Yeon-hee drive him home, Hae-chul told her to take the car to the dock. He pulled out a gift, saying it was specially prepared for her.
뭐 하시는 거예요?
이런 곤란한데? 아니, 오 과장도 나한테 좋은 감정 있는 거 아니었어?
무슨 말씀하시는 거예요?
Seeing Hae-chul's unwanted advances, Yeon-hee could no longer tolerate it. She made an excuse about urgent matters at home and demanded he get out of the car. Seeing Yeon-hee's strong reaction, Hae-chul worried things might escalate and had no choice but to leave. But when Yeon-hee returned to her apartment complex, she found her parking spot blocked again. Already upset from the incident with Hae-chul, Yeon-hee's anger finally burst out. She dialed Malsuk's number, ready to confront her. But when the call connected, the voice that answered was a man.
여보세요? 590이 차주분 전화 아닌가요?
맞는데
네, 저 여기 차 좀 빼주세요.
차요?
네, 이 차가 제 주차장 가로막고 있어서 제가 못 들어가고 있거든요. 빨리 좀 빼주세요.
Inside the apartment, Malsuk was tied up on the floor. Moments later, the man came downstairs, glancing at the entrance, mocking Yeon-hee for her poor driving skills, saying the passage was wide enough for her to get through. Yeon-hee thought Ho-jun was Malsuk's husband. Hearing his arrogance and his criticism of her skills, Yeon-hee, already furious, completely lost patience. After her complaints, Ho-jun didn't argue further. He simply moved the car aside. However, while parking, Yeon-hee didn't notice Ho-jun staring fiercely at her. His hands were covered in blood. Back at home, Ho-jun grabbed a can of beer and unlocked Malsuk's phone. Ho-jun was Malsuk's ex-boyfriend. She had swindled all his savings and then disappeared, and Malsuk knew Ho-jun was dangerous, so she came up with a malicious plan. She would deliberately block Yeon-hee's parking space every time, so that if something ever happened to her one day, Yeon-hee would be forced to call the police. But Malsuk miscalculated. She thought she was hiding well, not realizing Ho-jun had already tracked her down. Pretending to be a gas inspector, he tricked his way into her apartment. Seeing photos of Malsuk with other men on her phone, Ho-jun grew furious, and in rage he struck her with an axe. Yet even so, his anger still didn't subside. He recalled Yeon-hee's words and felt humiliated. The next evening, Yeon-hee returned home from work, relieved to see Malsuk's car was no longer blocking the way. But just as she parked and was about to leave, Ho-jun called out to her.
아무래도 사과를 받아야 할 것 같아서 사과를 받아야겠다고.
아니 솔직히 사과는 그쪽에서 하셔야죠.
그래서 안 하겠다고. 별거 아닌 말이 별거가 되는 일이 있어.
Hearing his demand for an apology, Yeon-hee was stunned. It was clearly Malsuk who caused her trouble, so why should she be the one to apologize? Unable to hold back, Yeon-hee argued with Ho-jun. She mocked Malsuk's lack of driving skills and accused Ho-jun of being unreasonable. She said the property had clearly marked spaces, and if everyone followed the rules, none of this would happen. Without waiting for him to respond, Yeon-hee turned around and left, but she didn't realize her words once again provoked Ho-jun. As soon as she got home, Yeon-hee received a call from her mother, asking her to transfer money because her brother had gotten into trouble at the gym and needed bail. Learning her brother was in trouble again, Yeon-hee felt both angry and disappointed. But as she complained about him, she noticed Ho-jun standing downstairs through the window. His gaze terrified her. She quickly hung up the call and turned off all the lights. When she looked again, he was gone. She recalled her colleague's warning. Could it be that Ho-jun and Malsuk had targeted her from the start? Because of this, Yeon-hee barely slept that night. Fortunately, Ho-jun didn't show up again. The next morning, she suddenly got a call from a colleague. The client wanted revisions on her project, so to avoid delays, Yeon-hee rushed back to the office. But while she was working, Hae-chul suddenly appeared behind her, trying once again to invite her to dinner. Yeon-hee saw through his intentions, and this time she didn't back down. She firmly refused and said she only wanted to focus on her work. After finishing the revisions, Yeon-hee hurriedly left the office, but Hae-chul followed her to the parking garage. Having had enough, Yeon-hee stepped on the accelerator and drove away. Watching her drive away, Hae-chul was furious, but he didn't notice that the entire scene was being watched by Ho-jun, who had been following Yeon-hee. Seeing Hae-chul's frustration, Ho-jun assumed he was facing the same problem as himself. Meanwhile, Yeon-hee had no idea she was being watched. Instead of going home, she went to the police station to bail out her brother, Dong-hyun. By the time everything was done, it was already late at night. When she drove back to her complex, she was shocked to see Hae-chul waiting downstairs, so she quickly parked near a flower bed. Just then, her phone rang. It was Hae-chul threatening her with her full-time position. Hearing his warning, Yeon-hee refused to back down. She declared her resignation and hung up before he could reply. This made Hae-chul furious. At that moment, Ho-jun happened to drive up, pretending to be Yeon-hee's uncle and asking to have a word with him. Without suspicion, Hae-chul followed Ho-jun to the riverside. To leave a good impression on Ho-jun, Hae-chul bragged all the way about how successful he was and how he had helped Yeon-hee at work. He even promised that as long as Yeon-hee agreed to be with him, he would never let her down. But Hae-chul didn't notice that, while he was boasting, Ho-jun quietly pulled a wrench from the trunk. The next morning, Yeon-hee went to the office as usual, already prepared to resign. But after waiting half the day, Hae-chul never showed up. Just as she was wondering, Soo-kyung came to her. From Soo-kyung, Yeon-hee learned that Hae-chul had been spreading rumors in the company, claiming she was with him. This made Yeon-hee furious, and she decided to confront him the moment he arrived and hand in her resignation. But Hae-chul didn't come to work for 3 days straight. While she was still confused, the boss summoned her. From him, she learned that Hae-chul had gone missing 3 nights ago, and the last person he contacted before disappearing was Yeon-hee. When asked, Yeon-hee didn't hide the truth. She told the boss about how Hae-chul had been harassing her. It wasn't just her. Some other female colleagues had also been harassed by him. But even though the boss knew about Hae-chul's misconduct, instead of defending Yeon-hee,
알지, 그 소문이. 응?
말 그대로 소문이잖아요. 사실이 아닌 소문을 가지고 제가 왜 재택근무까지 해야 되는지 전 잘 모르겠는데요.
처신도 사회생활인 거 알만한 나이잖아.
he blamed her for not knowing how to handle things. He told Yeon-hee to take a break at home and return to work only when there was news of Hae-chul. Back at home, Yeon-hee packed her things, planning to stay with her mother for a while. But when she was about to leave, she found Mal-suk's car blocking the exit again. She thought about calling, but the memory of seeing Ho-jun downstairs made her hesitate. She tried to maneuver around the car, but the space was too narrow to get through. Helpless, she dialed Mal-suk's number, but this time, no one answered. In a hurry, Yeon-hee went up to Mal-suk's apartment, and the one who opened the door was Ho-jun.
차 좀 빼주세요. 차 좀 빼달라고요.
With no choice, she returned to her car. 20 minutes later, Ho-jun strolled downstairs and slowly moved the car. Watching his casual attitude, Yeon-hee was upset but didn't dare lose her temper. What she didn't know was that the nightmare had only just begun. At a gas station on the highway, she was shocked to see Ho-jun's car appear again. Sensing danger, she sped up to shake him off. But no matter how fast she drove, Ho-jun stayed close, even trying to force her off the road at a curve. Luckily, Yeon-hee reacted quickly, turning into a side road and escaping. Because of the delay, she didn't reach her mother's home until midnight. But the moment she walked in, she was horrified to find her mother tied to a chair, gagged. As she rushed to untie her, she saw Ho-jun inside the house, and panic set in. It turned out he had already planted a bug and tracker in her car so he could follow her wherever she went. Before she could react, he grabbed her by the neck. Just as she was about to lose consciousness, her brother Dong-hyun returned and struck Ho-jun with a bottle, knocking him out. But when Dong-hyun turned back after checking on his sister and mother, Ho-jun had already vanished. Yeon-hee immediately called the police. Soon, through the license plate and cameras, they tracked him down. Ho-jun's car was found in the mountains, parked in an open area, but he was nowhere to be seen. During the search, police discovered blood in the trunk. Tests showed 3 different blood samples. One belonged to Mal-suk, another to Hae-chul, and the third was still unidentified.
예, 일단 전국에 긴급수배 내렸으니까 너무 걱정하지 마시고요.
Police warned Yeon-hee to stay cautious. Learning that Mal-suk and Hae-chul were likely murdered left Yeon-hee in shock, but she still couldn't understand why Ho-jun targeted her. Was it really just because of parking? Fearing revenge, she rarely went out, and whenever she did, her brother stayed with her. Weeks passed with no sign of Ho-jun. Yeon-hee thought he had fled under police pressure. But just when she thought she was safe, Ho-jun appeared again, using a stun gun on Dong-hyun and knocking Yeon-hee out with a wrench. When she woke up, she was in the wilderness. Ho-jun was digging a pit, planning to bury her alive. Seeing that Yeon-hee was awake, Ho-jun walked over. Thinking his anger was still about the parking incident, Yeon-hee apologized repeatedly, begging him to let her go. But Ho-jun told her it wasn't about that.
동생이 누나를 닮아서 예의가 없어.
That night, when he heard Hae-chul's mocking words, he believed Yeon-hee was just like Mal-suk, someone who deceived feelings and money. The reason he eliminated Hae-chul was because he thought people like him were the reason women betrayed relationships, and such people didn't deserve to exist. Hearing this, Yeon-hee was frozen in shock. Just as he was about to push her into the pit, someone approached. It was a hiker, unable to leave because Ho-jun's car was blocking the road. He thought the driver might be nearby, so he came looking. The moment he arrived, he saw Yeon-hee on the ground, realized something was wrong, and tried to run. But Ho-jun picked up a stick and rushed at him. The man managed to dodge, but during the struggle he slipped, giving Ho-jun the chance to pin him. Just as Ho-jun was about to strangle him, Yeon-hee broke free from the ropes, grabbed a heavy object and struck him hard on the head. In the end, the police, alerted by the call, arrived in the mountains and arrested the unconscious Ho-jun. And that was the full story of the 2025 Korean thriller, No Parking. Overall, the film delivered solid quality and plenty of suspense. So, have you ever run into unreasonable drivers like this in real life? That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.